Hey Rebecca, thank you so much for being here today. We're super excited to get to talk to you. I would love if you could introduce yourself.
Of course. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Rebecca Garner. I am the author of the young adult novel, Why Won't My Boobs Grow and Other Annoyances. And like I said, I'm excited to be here and talk with you today.
Love that. What is your book about?
So, like I said, it's a young adult novel. The main character's name is Emma Bishop. She is a 14-year-old girl. And really, the book is just her trials and tribulations, just trying to make it through eighth grade. It's written in diary style. So it's a lot of Emma's stream of consciousness of what is going through her brain, how she is handling the things that are happening to her, which, includes zits and a first kiss and fights with friends, all of those fun things that you experience as a teenager.
Love it. What inspired you to write your book?
Well, I being an author was something I had always dreamed of from being a teenager myself. Um, and I'm actually a former middle school language arts teacher. And I ended up leaving teaching. I was super burnt out. And I knew, though, that I didn't want to be completely done with that age group, with hopefully having some sort of impact. Um, and so I had recently started writing again. And I wrote in a journal once, not long before I left teaching, and said, why I'm tired of telling myself that I have to follow this ordinary path in life. Who says I can't be an extraordinary author? So when I left my teaching job, I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a book. And I did. And that's really like, hammering it down. But I think that to answer your question, the inspiration of it all came from my love for um, young adult literature. First of all, as a middle school language arts teacher, I loved young adult literature, and then also just wanting to still be able to put some good out into the world, even if I wasn't going to be impacting teenagers on a day to day anymore.
That's so amazing. When you were writing your book, who are you thinking of when it comes to who your book is for?
So definitely the primary target audience is teenage girls. I usually say like between the ages of 12 to 15 would be like the prime age range, because like I said, Emma is 14, and it's all of the things that she experiences are all of the things that your average teenager experiences. And when I wrote Emma, I wanted her to be just your typical average teenager, the kind of character I would have loved to have seen when I was a teenager, no magical powers, no super witty sense of humor. She's just a regular girl. And, hopefully she's relatable to other teenagers. But also, though, as a nostalgic millennial myself, I think that the book is definitely a fun trip down memory lane for adults as well. Um, Probably more so women than men. However, I will say my husband, who is a 33-year-old man, did read my book when it first came out. And he came inside the day he finished it and he was like, that was good. Like, I enjoyed that. He's like, not that I thought your book was going to be bad. He's like, but I don't really read books that are written for 13-year-old girls. So primary audience would definitely be teenagers, but I think that there are elements within the book that anybody of any age or gender can relate to.
Yes, definitely. And I had a chance to read through some, and definitely you can pick out things, go down memory lane. Even reading it, if you have a teenage daughter, definitely would recommend that personally.
Thank you.
How long have you been writing?
So I specifically with this, I started writing this book when I left teaching, which was 5 years ago. Before that, though, I was writing somewhat regularly. I had started a blog. And before that, I started writing a different novel that never ended up getting finished. It was a new adult novel. And, prior to that, writing has always been something that I've enjoyed. I loved creative writing classes when I was in college, and I loved teaching writing when I was teaching. So it's something that's always been part of my life, but always kind of took a back burner. And so over this past year, in working to get this book published, is really when I moved it more so to the forefront.
Amazing. What really made you sit down and start and decide that now was the time to write the book?
So it was the impetus was leaving my teaching job. I had decided between leaving my teaching job, which ended in June, I decided to take the summer off. I knew I wasn't going to go back to teaching, and I knew I had to get a new job, but I decided you can have the summer and you can see what comes of the writing. So like I said, I spent the summer hammering out a first draft. But this was 5 years ago, and I finished that first draft, and then I didn't open it. I shut my computer. No one read it. It sat unread on my computer for a few years. And I just, I went about my normal life. I had a baby. I had started a new job, and, I was really enjoying it. And then the pandemic hit. And like many people, when I was stuck at home, I was like, well, what sort of hobbies do I have? None really. What can I do with myself? And I decided to open Emma's story back up, and I was reading through it and I was like, wow, this isn't horrible. Maybe I should give this another go. And so I kind of, reviewed what I had written, and I ended up finding the program that I ended up publishing with, and it all was very serendipitous. So and it all ended up working out in the end. So I guess it's a two-part question, because I originally wrote it so long ago, but then really the pandemic is what kind of reignited that spark.
I love that.
Thank you.
What is your schedule like when you're writing a book?
So I am currently working on a sequel. It's a lot because for me personally, I am writing, and I have a full-time job, and I'm a mom and a wife, and like I like to be social from time to time. But really what it looks like is making time to write, even if it's small moments here and there. I don't have 4 hours every day where I can sit down and focus on my writing. Unfortunately, that's the dream, right? But I try to make time where I can. I will get up early and spend an hour writing before work to, to make that time for myself and to progress as much as I can. I'm not flying through this first draft like I might have in the past, but I'm still moving forward. And, that's really what's the most important thing, is that whether it's 5 minutes or 30 or an hour, that I'm putting in the time and making the time to get that writing, to get those words on the page.
What do you need in your writing space to help you stay focused?
I love this question. I need a snack. Usually, depending on the time of day. So when I was editing Why Won't My Boobs Grow, that usually happened in the evenings. So I would have usually a bowl of Cheez-Its or some trail mix to get me through. But now that I'm writing in the morning, it's usually like my breakfast. So, this morning it was a bagel, but a snack is definitely a must for me, as well as a beverage. So again, lately it's been a coffee, but when I was working in the evenings, I would, usually have a glass of wine with my editing or writing session. So really, I'm all about the snacks and the beverages. Those are the most important things for me.
I love that, because that was essentially the next question. What's your favorite writing snack or drink?
Okay, well, my favorite is a glass of wine. However, I'm pregnant right now, so not having that. But I do still have a cup of coffee, which is a close second. So I can't complain too much.
Love that. Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
What type of books do you personally enjoy reading?
I someone asked me this recently also, and I'm such a mixed bag because I love young adult. Young adult is definitely one of my favorites. I actually read Jenny Han's To All the Boys I Loved Before series for the first time last year, and it was just incredible, and I loved it so much. And when I read it, I talked about this on my Instagram. I there's something about young adult novels that you don't feel when you're reading even like an adult romance or whatever it might be. Young adult literature, in my opinion, just awakens a piece of your brain or a piece of your soul that just doesn't exist outside of that time frame. Um, Also a big fan of romance. And then, throw a curveball in there. I love a good thriller too.
Love that. Are there any books or authors that inspired you to become a writer?
Definitely. So Why Won't My Boobs Grow was heavily inspired by a series that I read when I was in middle school and was obsessed with. Um, the first book in the series is called Angus Thongs and Full Frontal Snogging, by Louise Renison. I was obsessed with these books. I loved them so much. She's a British author, or she was a British author. She passed a few years back, but they were written in that diary style, and the main character was just relatable and funny, and I loved those books. And so when I started writing mine, I mentioned Emma's story is written in diary style as well, and I wanted to create that same experience for someone else, of feeling seen and this relatable main character and the relatable stream of consciousness, jumping from thought to thought so quickly that you can only really experience as a teenager, when you're having all of these feelings and all of these emotions all at once and you're not really sure how to deal with all of them. So that was definitely my biggest inspiration. I think the second probably is Sarah Dessen, another young adult author. I love her writing. She writes such beautiful and heartfelt stories and just has these moments in all of her stories that are so poignant and powerful. So I always like to say, I hope that I'm somewhere in between. I don't think I'm as funny as Louise Renison, and I don't think I am as poignant as Sarah Dessen, but hopefully somewhere in between.
Love that. What type of books did you grow up reading? Did you have an all-time favorite?
Oh my gosh, that's so hard. I was a big reader growing up. I remember even, like in elementary school, like I devoured Babysitter's Club. I also really loved those Full House books. I don't know if you ever read those, like, in the early 2000s. I loved those. Um, but I think, one of the biggest impacts beyond the Angus books I was just talking about was Harry Potter. I mean, just took over. I am still a huge Harry Potter fan. Um, but yeah, I was always a big reader, always really loved to read. And as a mom now, really trying to foster that in my daughter, finding that joy in reading and that escapism that you can't necessarily find somewhere else.
So true. So true. On the opposite side of that, now as an adult, do you have a favorite series or author that if they put something out, you're going to grab it right away?
Um, I have a few. The first one that comes to mind is Leanne Moriarty. I don't know if you've read any of her books. Oh my gosh, she's fabulous. It's not like a thriller, but always has like a twist, kind of like Jodi Picoult style. That's another one. I love Jodi Picoult. Um, in my young adult vein, I love Jenny Han. Um, yeah, those are probably the top three for me that are just like auto buy. Oh wait, Stephanie Garber also. Um, and I only just found out about her a few years back when Caraval was published. But I mean, she writes anything and click. I need that.
Love it, love it, love it. What would you tell someone just starting out with reading again?
I think I find sometimes when I get in a reading slump that I'm hesitant to like ooh. I find that I will be hesitant to like pick something up because I'm afraid I won't like it. And then I end up, diving in and I can't put it down. So I think it would just be to give it a chance. If a cover piques your interest, pick it up and read a few pages and it might surprise you. But picking up the book, I think, is just the best thing.
Amazing. On the opposite side of that, what would you tell someone who's just starting to write their own book?
To do it and make the time to do it. Like I was talking about before, if you're waiting for the right time or for the time in your life where you're going to have more time, it's not going to come. It's not going to happen. You have to make that time. So that would be my advice, to decide to do it and to make the time to do it. Whether it's 10 minutes in the morning or it's an hour before bed or, wherever you can fit it in. But if it's something that you want to do, you have to make the time for it.
So true, so true. What's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you?
Something that surprises people is that I am super into true crime. Not so much like I don't like to read horror. I don't really like to read true crime, but your girl loves a true crime podcast. Like, give me an episode of Morbid any day. I love to hear those girls take me on a deep dive about Jack the Ripper. Like,
Yes, and she just had a book come out.
I know, but see, here's the thing: is I'm not a big horror reader, so I'm nervous about it.
I've heard it's really good. I haven't started to read it yet, but I have heard really good things about it and really good things about people who have actually listened to it on Audible.
Oh, interesting. I mean, knowing her and just like the incredible storytelling she does on the podcast, no surprise.
But is there anything you would like to say or add?
Um, I guess mm, I don't think that there's really anything. I think you asked really great questions. A lot of usually like one of my spiels is to talk about like making the time for what you want to do, for what you're passionate about. So I think that that would be it, is whether you're passionate about writing or reading or true crime, whatever it might be, to prioritize that for yourself. Because again, if you're just waiting around, it's not going to come, and you're worth prioritizing. So
Amazing. Where's the best place for readers to find your book? I know some readers love signed copies. Is that an option and the best place to connect with you?
yes, definitely. Best place to connect with me, where you're going to see me most often, is on Instagram. My handle is just Rebecca Garner _ author. I'm there far too much. I'm also occasionally on the TikTok, as my millennial self likes to call it. And I do have a website. The book is available where books are sold: Amazon, Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org. I do also offer signed copies. It's not official on my website just yet, but I always offer, readers can always reach out to me via a DM on Instagram, and I'm always happy to make that happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. And we'll be sure to drop those links in the show notes so that everyone can find them. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, Courtney.